The day she was dragged into the center of Clearwater Town, chains biting her wrists and dust tangled in her hair, no one spoke her name. Not even the man who claimed to own her. He called her the silent Apache, as if the absence of speech stripped her of humanity, as if namelessness made cruelty easier to bear. The settlers, ranchers, and drifters gathered for the auction didn't need a name to judge her worth. They saw a curse, a trophy from a war they never understood. The auctioneer grinned, shouting above the wind, half price. 50% off. No one moved. Not a single bid. Not even from the desperate or the drunk. The girl stared at the dusty street. Her face unreadable. Her eyes hollow, not from fear, but from something deeper. A grief so vast it made others look away. She didn't speak. She didn't fight. She simply stood as if her body had survived but everything inside it had died long ago. The auctioneer's smile cracked. He barked rumors to stir the crowd, said she was cursed, a witch who'd watched her tribe burn, her silence born from dark ritual. Still, no one raised a hand. Whispers rippled through the crowd like smoke. Some claimed she'd killed a white soldier with her bare hands. Others swore she hadn't made a sound in months, not even when whipped, that her silence was madness itself. At the edge of the crowd stood a man who neither laughed nor jeered. Hat low, arms folded, eyes steady. Elias Mercer. A quiet cowboy with a scar on his jaw and a past most had learned not to ask about. He wasn't rich. He wasn't righteous. But he saw something no one else did, not savagery or insanity, but resignation wrapped tight as armor. When Elias raised his hand and offered the only bid, the town fell silent. The auctioneer blinked in disbelief, but he took the coin. Some men laughed. Others muttered warnings. "You'll regret it, Mercer." "She's cursed," someone said. Elias didn't reply. His gaze never left the girl. They unlocked her chains. She stumbled forward, knees hitting the dirt. She didn't thank him, didn't even look at him. Elias signed the papers, took the rope tied to her wrists, and walked her through the crowd. He didn't drag her or speak. He simply walked, and she followed. The dust rose behind them, swallowing their footprints. He didn't speak until they reached his horse. "You're not going where he thinks you are," he murmured, nodding toward the auctioneer. "I'm not keeping you." She didn't react. He didn't expect her to. Elias wasn't saving her for gratitude or redemption. He wasn't a man chasing forgiveness. He'd seen that look in her eyes before, the emptiness of someone who died but hadn't been buried. It was the same look that haunted his reflection since a massacre the world had already forgotten. He cut the rope around her wrists and handed her a canteen. "Drink if you want. Walk if you want. Stay or don't. I won't stop you." Her fingers trembled as she took it. She didn't drink. She just stared at him, searching his face like she was measuring whether this too was another trick. Then she turned and began walking into the open desert. Elias mounted his horse and rode beside her, keeping distance but not leaving. He didn't tell her where to go or ask where she came from. They simply walked, two souls with nowhere left to belong. For the first time in months, she walked by choice, not by chains. That night, they camped beneath a rocky ledge. Elias lit no fire. Fire drew eyes, and eyes meant death. He placed a strip of dried meat near her and lay back against the stone, staring up at the stars. Hours passed before he heard a sound, a sharp, broken breath, like someone choking on memory. He turned. She sat upright, arms wrapped around her knees, trembling but silent. No tears. No voice. Just pain, raw, soundless, endless. Elias didn't move. He knew that kind of pain. Words never fixed it. Touch only deepened the wound. By morning, they found a river. She knelt and drank greedily, washing her face, her scars, the dirt of ownership. Elias sat nearby, eyes averted, pretending not to see the marks on her body, the bruises, the burns, the branded scar on her shoulder. The mark of property. Finally, he spoke. "The man who sold you, where did he take you from?" She didn't look up. Didn't answer. He didn't push. But after a long silence, she raised her hand and pointed north. Elias nodded. "We go that way, then." She rose without hesitation, walking toward the land of ghosts. 3 days later, they reached what was left of her village. Ashes. Blackened timber. Scattered bones. Silence heavy as the grave. She walked slowly, each step breaking something invisible inside her. Then she stopped at a small pile of stones, a grave, carefully made. She knelt and placed her hand on it. A sound escaped her, not a word, not even a sob, but a wounded breath that cut through the air like a broken prayer. Elias understood then. Her silence wasn't chosen. It had been beaten into her. She'd watched soldiers ride into her village, kill her father, drag her mother into the flames, and steal her brother. When she screamed, they struck her throat with a rifle until her voice shattered. Her voice had been the first thing they stole. Her freedom was next. Elias felt the earth shift beneath his boots. He'd seen men do terrible things, but her survival, her ability to still walk, still breathe, shook him. Before he could speak, she turned sharply toward the horizon. A dust cloud. Riders. Her eyes widened. The auctioneer hadn't forgotten. He'd sold her cheap but still wanted his loss repaid. Elias pulled her behind the ruins. 5 riders. Armed. Amos Glay led them, voice loud and cruel. "You think you can just take what's mine, Mercer? That Injun whore's worth more than your miserable life." Elias rose from cover, revolver steady. "She's not yours." Glay laughed. "You don't know what she is." The gunfire came quick. Dust exploded. Echoes cracked off the ruins. When it ended, the earth was still again. Glay and his men lay silent in the dirt. Elias stood bleeding, panting, alive. The girl walked toward him, unshaken. She knelt beside him and pressed her hand over his heart, not as thanks, not as plea, but as recognition. He had seen her. Not as a slave. Not as a curse. As a person. She opened her mouth. No sound came, but she didn't need words. Her eyes said everything. Together, they buried the bodies beneath the ruins, not for honor, but to end something that had refused to die. When they rode away, she didn't look back. Her village was gone. Her name was lost. But her silence was no longer a cage. It was a weapon, forged in pain, tempered by truth. And though Elias knew she might never speak again, he also knew her story was louder than any voice the world had ever tried to steal.